When I was 10 years old, I had my first pet. My father went to his friend's house to play. I was at school that day, so I wasn't able to go with him. I was looking forward to his return because he said he would give me a surprise. At the end of the night, I heard the doorbell. I ran to the door to greet my dad. When I opened the door, my dad was standing outside with a smile on his face and a cute Labrador by his side. My eyes went wide and I couldn't believe my eyes. This was my first pet. The Labrador had gentle, intelligent eyes that revealed endless kindness. His tail was wagging wildly as if to tell me that he was feeling very happy too. I immediately hugged the cute puppy and it licked my cheek enthusiastically. My dad told me that his friend's dog had given birth to many puppies and he decided to adopt one for me. From that day on, my Labrador and I became good friends. I named him Chocolate because I love chocolate so much. We spent many happy times together. Every day when I came home from school, I would run to the yard to play with Chocolate. It was always there for me, both when I was happy and when I was sad. When I reached the age of 15, I hardly had time to play with Chocolate due to the pressure of school. Study and extracurricular activities took up most of the time every day. One day, I went out to meet a friend and forgot to close the door again. I didn't realize that this tiny oversight would bring me deep self-loathing. When I returned home in the evening, my father was standing at the door waiting for me. He had a shovel in his hand, and a sense of foreboding washed over me. My father told me that Chocolate had sneaked out of the house and had been hit by a truck and killed. I couldn't take the news. I went into the backyard and dug a grave. My hands trembled and tears blurred my vision. I stood quietly in front of the grave. My hand gently touched the earth on the grave. I felt endless remorse and sadness because I did not cherish the time I spent with Chocolate. After I graduated from college, I joined a construction company, and our main task was to lay pipes. One Friday afternoon, my coworkers and I were discussing going to a soccer game over the weekend. Suddenly, our boss approached us with a serious look on his face. He told us to stop talking so we could leave work on time. The boss asked me to go to the truck to get a tool, and I turned around and walked to the truck that was parked. When I returned with the tool, the truck was out of control and was rapidly approaching in my direction. I looked for a place to hide, but it happened so fast that I was too late to get out of the way. At the moment of impact, I felt a sharp pain. I was knocked to the ground by the powerful impact, and blood flowed from my arm. My body felt very cold. My boss asked a colleague to bring a first aid kit and called the emergency services. Time became blurred and distorted in this moment. Suddenly, I left my body, like an observer floating above. I could clearly see the paramedics arriving on the scene and they were doing their best to provide me with assistance. I watched the scene with indifferent eyes. There was no fluctuation inside me, as if I was in a surreal state. Time became a blur and I felt more and more disconnected from the real world. The paramedics used cardiac resuscitation to try to restore my breathing and heartbeat. I could feel their tension. I watched as the paramedics lifted me into the ambulance and prepared to transport me to the hospital for further treatment. Suddenly, a tunnel appeared in front of me. As I entered the tunnel, I could barely see anything. As I continued on, the tunnel began to gradually become brighter. I could see tiny droplets of water shimmering on the walls, as if they were dewdrops oozing from the tunnel walls. These water droplets shimmered in the light with a colorful glow, as beautiful as jewels. After walking for some distance, I found that the sides were covered with gorgeous crystals. They emitted a soft glow. Like the guardians of the tunnel. The crystals come in many different colors. There were blue stones and green emeralds, each emitting a unique glow. I also heard the pleasant music, the sound echoing through the tunnel. It was an enchanting and serene melody, with soft notes intertwined. The tunnel became brighter and brighter. As I emerged from the tunnel, I was surrounded by a large bush of wildflowers. These flowers were blooming in the most vibrant colors. They swayed in the breeze as if they were dancing with joy. They were the most beautiful flowers I had ever seen. They shone in the sunlight and gave off an intoxicating fragrance. I felt their vitality and beauty. Each flower was like a work of art. A fragrance permeated the flowers. I walked along this sea of flowers, enjoying every moment. I gently touched the petals and felt their soft texture. In this beautiful place, I felt the peace and beauty. All worries and cares were forgotten. On the opposite side of the field, I noticed a man walking toward me. He was wearing a pair of pants and a shirt and looked very neat. What struck me as odd was that he was not wearing shoes. As he approached, he smiled at me and said, "This place is beautiful, isn't it?" Although I've heard of people communicating through their minds during near-death experiences, his lips were clearly moving. "Where are we?" I asked him curiously. He smiled and replied, "There is no specific name for this place, but you can call it heaven." The man continued, "Would you like to go for a stroll with me?" I nodded my head. As we continued to walk forward, a small house suddenly came into view. The house was simple and welcoming, surrounded by beautiful natural scenery. Next to the house flowed a narrow stream, the clear water flowing slowly and making a soft flowing sound. The man suddenly blew a loud whistle. I saw a dog running toward us from a distance. I recognized it immediately. It was Chocolate. I thought I would never see it again. My heart was filled with joy and surprise. Chocolate rushed towards me, its tail wagging wildly and jumping up and down in excitement. I was pounced on by the chocolate and it started licking my face. The man smiled at me and said, "I can see that it really misses you." I shuddered and whispered in reply, "Me too, I thought I would never see the chocolate again." I picked up a stick by the river and the chocolate immediately stared at it excitedly. We began to play a game, and the sound of joyful laughter echoed along the creek. Here, I spent a happy time with Chocolate. I don't know how long I stayed in this beautiful place. The man turned toward me and smiled and said, "Ready to go back?" Confused, I asked, "Where to?" "I want to stay here." He explained, "Sorry, it's not your time yet, so you have to go back. But don't worry, the chocolate will be here for you." I was so lost, I didn't want to leave it. Although my heart was full of reluctance, I knew that I had to go back. I nodded my head silently. The man reached out his hand and gently touched my shoulder. An overwhelming warmth was transferred to me. I felt a vortex that was surrounding me. Before I left, I took one last look at the chocolate, which sat quietly among the flowers. I bid it goodbye, grateful for the joy and companionship it had brought me. I was surrounded by a soft glow and felt like I was returning to the real world. The return process was accompanied by a feeling of lightness and peace as my soul gradually returned to its original place. My consciousness gradually cleared up and I began to feel my surroundings and the sensations in my body. I could hear the faint cacophony of voices in the hospital room. I slowly opened my eyes and saw the doctors and nurses beside me. My heart was filled with gratitude. I understood that the beautiful paradise was not an illusion, but a special experience that I had personally experienced. I saw my father standing by the bedside, nervous and full of concern. He reached out his hand and gently touched my cheek. "Son, you are awake." My father's voice was tinged with excitement. I smiled and nodded my head. I wanted to sit up, but the doctor told me that I could only lie down now. My lower leg had been fractured and needed further treatment to return to normal. I would have to have another surgery before I could walk normally. The doctor scheduled me for the surgery. On the day of the surgery, I was wheeled into the operating room and the smell of sterile water filled the room. The doctors and nurses were busy preparing the surgical instruments and equipment. The surgery took 3 hours. Over the next few weeks, I received specialized rehabilitation care and physical therapy. My calf muscles became weak from the long recuperation and walking became difficult. However, I insisted on daily rehab and gradually built up muscle strength through targeted exercises and workouts. I gradually regained the ability to walk, and I felt very relieved and satisfied. When I returned home, I shared my experience in heaven with my family. However, they didn't act like they believed it. They thought it was just a hallucination or dream that I had while I was in a coma. To me, that experience was so real and profound. I was not interested in religion, so I did not see Jesus or angels. However, I did visit a beautiful and peaceful place. I believe that one day, when I finally leave this world, I will meet with chocolate again and we will be together forever. I also understand my family's thoughts. I hold that experience close to my heart, and it has become a source of strength and inspiration within me. I want to pass on some comfort and hope to those who have lost their pets. Animals will find their own paradise. I want to tell you that animals have souls too, and they have their own paradise. There, they are free from pain and disease. For those of you who have lost your pets, I hope you will keep the love you have for them. Although they have left us, their souls are still connected to us. The bond we have with our animals is unique. They are an integral part of our lives. Past, present and future. They have taught us to love unconditionally. Their presence is a precious gift that brings us laughter and companionship. In 2015, I went through a very difficult time. At that time, my father had been in the hospital for over a year, which caused me a lot of worry and anxiety. Although we hired a care worker to take care of him, I visited him in the hospital almost every day. No matter what I was busy with, I would do everything I could to be there for him. It was very hard to see him lying in his hospital bed, his health deteriorating. I clearly remember the depressing atmosphere that enveloped me every time I walked through the hospital doors. When I entered my father's hospital room, I could often smell the drugs and disinfectants. Whenever I saw my father, I always tried to keep a calm expression because I knew he needed me to bring him hope and comfort. Deep down, I also felt very helpless because I could not change his condition and could only be there for him through this difficult phase. One day, when I entered the hospital room again, I felt the tension and heaviness of the atmosphere. I looked at my father and saw his pale face and faint breathing. His body was gradually losing its strength to live. I moved closer to the bedside and gently held his hand. He did his best to smile at me. It was a smile full of love that made the sorrow in my heart become stronger. I knew that he was about to leave this world. In the hospital room, time seemed to freeze. My father's breathing gradually became faint and eventually stopped. He closed his eyes. I sat quietly by the bedside, unable to accept his passing. As my father's only child, I was responsible for planning the funeral all by myself. After he left, I was under tremendous financial pressure and emotional burden. For a long time, I would lose sleep at night. During the time after my father's death, I would often dream about him. In the dreams, he appeared in various images, sometimes as he was when he was young, and sometimes when he smiled for the last time. These dreams brought me mixed emotions. A year later, things finally started to get better for me. At that time, I had a girlfriend. We worked hard for our future life. To achieve our common goal, I found 2 jobs. Living an intense and full life every day, I had little time to relax and rest. During that time, I would often stay up late working. Such efforts eventually took their toll on me. One day, due to long hours of work, I suddenly collapsed at home. At that time, I lost consciousness. At the moment of unconsciousness, I was surrounded by a peaceful light. I felt an overwhelmingly warm force surrounding me. I was floating on top of my body. I looked closely at my hand, which emitted a faint white light and was translucent white in color. The upper half of my body resembled a human, but when I looked down, I was surprised to see that I did not see legs, but something that looked like a tail. This tail was long and thin and soft, and the surface of the tail looked very smooth and emitted a soft glow. Its presence made me feel a special power, as if I had merged with some mysterious force. As I floated above my body, I began to think about whether I would be able to pass through the ceiling. I decided to give it a try. I began to move slowly upward. As I passed through the attic, I felt some resistance, but it did not stop me from continuing my ascent. When I reached the attic, I saw a woman who was sitting there with tears wetting her face. Our forms looked very similar. I wasn't sure who this woman was, but I knew she was experiencing some kind of grief. My heart was filled with compassion. I could communicate with her through my thoughts. She told me she couldn't find her way home. I told her, "Don't worry, we will find our way home." Sometimes we lose our way, but it is important that we don't give up hope. Together we can explore our surroundings and look for any clues and guidance to help her find her way home. I told her that I wanted her to leave here with me. The woman stopped crying. I gently extended my hand to her and invited her to leave the attic with me. We soon came over the city. The view of the city was completely different from that of real life. And the colors I saw were more vibrant and full of life than usual. Every color glowed brightly. The sky was bluer and the trees were greener. Everything was infused with vivid colors, creating a beautiful scene. Over the city, I saw human beings were as busy as ants. The cars on the streets seemed to be moving like insects, and the cars came in a variety of colors. The whole city was full of energy. We came above a hospital. An old man appeared in front of us, and he flew toward us with a lightness. I saw that he was still wearing his hospital clothes. We greeted him. The old man was smiling and he told us that he had died of lung cancer and now he was preparing to return to his other home. I asked the old man if you could take us with you. My partner was also looking for a way to return home. The old man smiled and nodded his head. He was willing to take us with him to his destination. He explained that this home is the place where all souls belong. Led by the old man, we flew toward our destination. During the flight, we talked with the old man and shared our experiences and feelings with each other. The old man told us that he used to be a workaholic and always pursued success in his career. He devoted most of his time to his work in order to chase higher status and greater achievements. Although he achieved a lot in his career, at the end of his life, he realized that none of this mattered anymore. He felt great regret that he did not spend enough time with his family and did not take care of his health. Due to the tremendous pressure of his work, he became more and more addicted to smoking. He was diagnosed with lung cancer at the age of 71. The old man sighed deeply and confessed to us that he was very remorseful. In the journey of life, the most important thing is to care for your family and take care of your physical and mental health. Suddenly, a huge archway appeared in front of us. The door glowed brightly as if it were the door to happiness. As we approached this door, a warm atmosphere filled the air. The old man stopped and gazed at the door as he exclaimed, "Thank God that I can continue to live here." Some of the old man's relatives stood in front of the door, their faces brimming with joy and anticipation. They gazed tenderly at the old man. The old man smiled and walked toward his relatives, and they hugged each other. After he said goodbye to us, he and his relatives walked through the door. I noticed that the lady with me was acting very frustrated. Just then, an old man came toward us. When the lady saw his appearance, she suddenly let out a roar of excitement and her eyes were filled with tears and joy. The old man was her grandfather. They gazed at each other and could hardly hide their inner joy. The two embraced each other tightly. Her grandfather waved to me and invited me to enter the door with him. I was very curious about what was inside that door. I agreed to their invitation. However, just as I was about to enter the door, an angel appeared in front of me. The angel said to me, "Even though your name is in the book of life, this is not the time for you to enter. You still have a mission to complete. Please return to Earth and continue your journey through life." I felt very lost and confused. I looked at the lady and her grandfather. The lady nodded understandingly, and her grandfather smiled gently at me. I said to the angel, "Can I meet my father? He passed away a year ago." The angel replied, "Sorry, I can't help you with that wish. What you need to know is that your father is doing very well now, and he is free from pain and trouble. He is enjoying endless peace and happiness in heaven. Although I cannot grant your wish to meet here and now, you will be reunited again in the near future. Even though I cannot see my father with my own eyes, it is enough for me to know that he is doing well in heaven." Just at this time, another angel came close to us. She smiled at me and gently extended her arm. She told me that it was time to go back. I held her hand tightly and prepared to return to the real world. As the angel led me, I felt my body lighten up and began to cross the barriers of space and time. A warm energy surrounded me, as if a pair of invisible hands were guiding me. I felt myself being gently caressed, as if I were surrounded by a soft cloud. This energy made me feel very comfortable. I felt myself begin to reconnect with the material world. I felt myself breathing, as if I had the power of life again. I began to perceive the sounds and light around me, and they gradually became clearer. Finally, I felt a slight vibration, as if a pulsation of energy had penetrated my body. This energy gradually subsided and I returned to my body. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself lying in a familiar bed. I took a deep breath and gazed gratefully at my surroundings. After experiencing this event, I had a new understanding of life. I realized that no matter how brilliantly I achieve in my career, the company of my family and my healthy body are the most important things. Whenever I am under stress, I will think of what that old man said to me. I began to pay more attention to my health, improve my habits and let go of unhealthy hobbies. I learned to take care of my body so that I would have more energy to take care of my family and pursue my true dreams and happiness. It's been 5 years since this incident and that experience has become a precious memory in my life. My girlfriend, who is now my wife, and I welcomed our own child 3 years ago. Although we are still living in a rented apartment, we are very happy. Over the years, we have learned the importance of family, and we have learned the meaning of mutual understanding and support. We no longer chase after material possessions, but focus on the warmth of family. We understand that time is so precious to us, so we cherish the time we have with our family. We create our own happy moments together in our rented cabin. We understand that happiness does not lie in the amount of wealth, but in the emotional ties and intimacy between us. We run our family with heart and soul, embracing and supporting with love. In the past 5 years, I have become a better husband and father. I put my family first, spend more time with them, and feel the endless joy and happiness they bring me. We have spent many wonderful moments together. Whenever I look at the smiling faces of my family, I deeply understand that the words of that old man have changed my outlook on life.